In this video, I want to talk about dimensioning for the purposes of documentation. So there's a lot of ways we can use dimensions in Revit, and previously we've seen them used as an editing tool to help us move things around. This time, I'd like to talk about dimensions as a documentation tool that will actually be used to call out the sizes of things in our documentation set. So I'm going to focus on the first floor plan on the right-hand side of the building here. So on the quick access toolbar, I'm going to click the aligned dimension tool, or you can get to it on the Annotate tab. Now, I want to look at some of the defaults on the options bar. The first one is this drop down right here. So you can see that it's defaulting to wall center line. And all that means is that if we highlight a wall, it will actually see the center line of the wall first. Now, it's possible to use your tab key to choose another point, but if you pick this drop down here, you can see there are some other options. So if most of the dimensions that you want to place favor the faces of the wall or the core of the wall, then you could choose one of those options. So I'm going to choose the wall faces here. That's going to allow me to very easily select either side of the wall. So I want to make sure I'm doing the top face of the exterior wall here, and then I'll come all the way down to the bottom face of the exterior wall at the bottom of the plan here, move my mouse out to the right somewhere, and click to place an overall dimension of the entire length of the building. So that's individual references, and you can see that right here on this pick option. So that's what it defaulted to. But if I click that, that's another drop down, and there's a second choice there, entire walls. So let's switch to entire walls and see what the difference is. With entire walls, instead of picking the places where you want the witness lines to be, you just pick one of your walls and it will find the overall extent of that wall. Furthermore, right here, there's an options button, and there are several options that you can couple with that. So the first one I'd like to show you is the intersecting grids option. So I'll check that box, click OK, and I'm going to select this upper wall right here. Now notice it highlights the full length. Let me zoom in a little on that so you can see. And I'm going to highlight that wall again. So with a single click, it will find the length of that wall. And because I turned on intersecting grids, notice that it also creates witness lines at each of the two grids that intersect that wall. Now, as I move close to the dimension I've already placed, you'll see it snap when it gets nearby. So there's a built-in offset value for individual strings of dimensions that the dimension is aware of, and I can click right there and snap them together at a fixed distance, which makes for a nice, neat presentation. Now, the only bad thing about that option is notice it only let me pick one wall, so it's ignoring the wall down below, but we'll deal with that in just a few moments. So let's stay focused on this upper wall here and go right back to the options button. Now, I'm going to turn off intersecting grids and switch on openings instead. Openings has two choices, centers or widths. It's a matter of personal preference. I like widths, so that's what I'm going to choose. I'll click OK, pick that same wall again, and now look at all the dimensions that I get. So it finds all of the window or door openings in this wall, dimensions all of them, and once again, it's going to try and snap to the nearest dimension. So I'll make sure it's snapping and click, and that gives me my innermost string with much more detail. Now I'm going to click the Modify tool to cancel out of the Dimension tool. And there's a few modifications I want to make in this location up here, but let's pan down instead, zoom in just a touch, and focus on the lower portion of the building instead. So we saw that entire walls only let us pick one wall at a time, but it ignored this wall or the curved wall or any of that other geometry down there. I'm going to go back to the middle dimension here and select it. On the ribbon, you'll see an Edit Witness Lines button. I can use that command to add to or remove from that existing dimension. Now, if you look really carefully, you will see that the existing witness lines are highlighted in blue. So I can see a little blue right there. The grid line has turned blue. So if you were to click on an existing blue highlighted element, it would actually remove that witness line from the dimension. If you click it again, it would add it back in again. You can also use this command to add in items that were ignored originally and add them to this string. So I could add this grid line and this outer edge of this wall. Now, very important, you get out of edit witness lines the same way you get out of the dimension command in the first place. Your last click is an empty white space. If you press escape or anything like that, you'll actually cancel the command. You'll lose the work that you've done. So always make sure you pick an empty white space to finish that command. Let's do it again with this dimension. So I'll select it here, go to edit witness lines. This time I'll pick the edge of that curtain wall opening and then the outside edge of this wall, and then I'll click anywhere to place the dimension. Now, if you like, you could place witness lines at each of the mullion locations too, but I'm going to keep this one simple. Now I'm going to pan down this way, and in that same command, I could add this doorway, edit witness lines, and pick both sides of the door, and then click an empty white space. All right, let's focus now on these windows here in the middle. And you can see that it's a little bit busy. And the reason for this is all the text is kind of overrunning each other. Now, if you'll notice that there is a small little dot next to each piece of text. And if I click and drag, that actually allows me to move the dimension value. Now, you can see that it's showing me 0 feet, 6 inches. Some people like to display it that way. And if you're happy with that, you can leave it alone. But sometimes folks like to actually suppress the 0 feet whenever that occurs and show only the inches. That's actually a setting that we can control in the dimension type itself. So keep that dimension selected. And then over here on the properties palette, we'll click this edit type button right here. This is all the settings that control the way the dimension looks. So I'm going to scroll down and locate the units format. There's a giant button next to it. I'll click that, and it says use project settings. And the project settings include the 0 feet. So if I uncheck that, I've got a suppress 0 feet option here. I can check that, click OK again, and now this shows only 6 inches and removes the 0 feet. Now, of course, any of the values that do have feet, it doesn't suppress that, and it's still showing 0 inches. So it only suppresses the 0 feet, not the 0 inches. So let me move the rest of these away to make the rest of this dimension string a little bit more legible. Now I'm going to zoom back out and look at the final result here. Let's click anywhere to deselect. So I encourage you to keep experimenting with the various tools that we've explored. Try both the individual references and the entire walls options, and I think you'll find that you're able to dimension the entire plan in a very short amount of time.